Let me call this meeting to order, please. It is 9:10, so let's get this 9 o'clock meeting started. We will begin today with prayer. I will ask Amy Mazzell Flint, the Jewish Peace Ambassador, to come forward and lead us in our invocation.
Good morning. I'm going to read the Jewish prayer for the government that I've modified just a little to incorporate our city council and the city of San Angelo. The original version of this prayer has been read every week in synagogues around the world since the 13th century. Sovereign of the universe, mercifully receive our prayer for our land, for its government, our city, and its leaders. Let your blessings pour out on this land and on all of its officials who are occupied in good faith with the public needs. Instruct them from your laws, enable them to understand your principles of justice so that peace and tranquility, happiness and freedom might never turn away from our land. Please, wise one, waken your spirit within all inhabitants of our fair city and plant among the peoples of different nationalities and faiths who dwell here love and brotherhood, peace and friendship. Uproot from their hearts all hatred and enmity, all jealousy and vying for supremacy. Fulfill the yearning of all the people and our leaders to speak proudly in its honor. Fulfill their desire to see it become a light to all nations. Therefore, may it be your will that our city shall be a blessing to all who live here. Cause all its people to dwell in friendship and freedom, and may our leaders and people help fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation. Let them learn no longer ways of war. And let us say, Amen.
Bruce McLaurin, come forward and help me with the pledge. We usually use a child to help us here, so this morning we're going to use a substitute child.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I noticed that Yankee had a little trouble with the Texas pledge, but he did get through it.
Thank you.
We have 3 proclamations this morning. The first one, the Pocahontas chapters of the Daughters of the American Revolution. This is Constitution Week. Is there anyone here that's to accept this proclamation? Come forward, please, ma'am. Miss Soha. Miss Soha. And the proclamation says, our founders, in order to secure the blessings of liberty for themselves and their posterity, did ordain and establish a Constitution for the United States of America, and it is of the greatest importance that all citizens fully understand the provisions and principles contained in the Constitution in order to support, preserve, and defend it against all enemies. And on the 227th anniversary, the signing of the Constitution provides an historic opportunity for all Americans to remember the achievements of our framers of our Constitution and the rights, privileges, and responsibilities they afforded us in this unique document. And whereas the independence guaranteed to American citizens, whether by birth or naturalization, shall be celebrated by appropriate ceremonies and activities during Constitution Week, September 17 through 23, is designated by proclamation of the President of the United States of America in accordance with Public Law 915. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, the mayor of the city of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the city council, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17 through the 23rd, 2014 is Constitution Week in the city of San Angelo, and urge all of our citizens to reflect during that week on the many benefits of our federal Constitution and the privileges and the responsibilities of American citizenship. And you get to make a speech now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Limits you to half an hour.
Okay. Well, I can do that. Thank you very much, Mayor and City Council. Thank you very much. You know that it's the greatest document of the nation. And so if you don't mind, I would just like to read the beautiful preamble. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. To ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Isn't it a great nation? And the best state and the most blessed city.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
very much.
Thank you. We need to get a picture taken here. There's Brian. Thank you so much. Truly only one document that we have, that's the Holy Bible, is any more important than the Constitution, and I believe they both came from the same source. The next proclamation I will read is Peace Through Forgiveness, the 2014 Season of Peace, to be accepted by Becky Bennis, Era Rahman, and Amy Mazzell Flint. If y'all would come forward, and I'll read this. The proclamation says the peace ambassadors of West Texas are working in relationship with several groups to facilitate forgiveness by offering interfaith dialogues, prayer services, and educational programs while gathering to build relationship in the Peace Through Forgiveness 2014 Season of Peace, and beginning with the 9/11 memorial service on September 11th and ending with a burning bowl ceremony at Unity Church on September 21. The peace ambassadors will also facilitate several other events in which the public is warmly invited. And a showing of forgiving Dr. Mengele, followed by soup and conversation and stories of reconciliation with Clifton Truman Daniel, grandson of Harry S. Truman, as he speaks of his work with the people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and with Dr. Linda L. White with the Texas Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty are but two of the planned events. And all people in their faith communities are encouraged to reflect on the impact forgiveness or lack thereof has in their lives, our community, and our world. To open their hearts to the possibility of reconciliation within themselves and with others, and be willing to take necessary action to bring forth inner peace through forgiveness, which will manifest peace in our world. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim September 11 through September 21 as the Peace Through Forgiveness 2014 Season of Peace, and encourage all to engage in private and community expressions of forgiveness through thought, action, and prayer, so that we may begin to live in lasting global peace. Give that to y'all, and then y'all have the microphone.
Yay! That's what I love. I'm Becky Bennis. I'm the president of the Peace Ambassadors of West Texas. We invite you all to attend our 7th annual Season of Peace. The Peace Ambassadors were formed about 10 years ago by Bishop Michael Pfeiffer. He is a response of 9/11. He brought 2 Christians, 2 Jews, and 2 Muslims together to have conversation. And he understood the importance of peace through understanding, education, and building relationships. There are so many myths out there that we as peace ambassadors come through every year to bring out solid education to dispel the myths about other faith traditions that are so pronounced in our country and worldwide. So we invite you to come to our Season of Peace this year. We partner with Angelo State University for the past 5 years because the quality of our programs are so esteemed. This year we have, beginning with the First United Methodist Church, we'll start our kickoff with the 9/11 Memorial, which will be at the 9/11 Memorial right by the Art Museum. That evening we'll start our prayer vigil for peace that will last throughout the entire season. Then on Friday the 12th, the synagogue is hosting a beautiful prayer service that all are welcome. It's a beautiful service that will be focused on forgiveness. That Saturday the 13th, we'll have a Buddhist insight meditation, which the whole focus will be on forgiveness, and it will introduce you to a different faith tradition. On the 16th, we'll have a documentary and a conversation and soup at the ASU Janelle Center, not the Janelle Center, the C.J. Davidson Center, and we'll be featuring a Jewish story of Eva Kor, who, through her own grappling with forgiveness, she was a twin in Nazi Germany, and she was being tested by Dr. Mengele. And it's her very fascinating story of reconciliation with herself. She knew that in order to have peace in the world, she was going to have to rectify peace within herself. So it's her beautiful story of reconciliation. It's a great invitation to come watch that. On Thursday, the 18th, we'll have Stories of Reconciliation, and Clifton Truman Daniel, the grandson of Harry Truman, who authorized the atomic bombs to be dropped in Japan. He will be talking about his story of reconciliation with Japan. He's been going over there on a regular basis to enter into relationship, because in one split moment, his grandfather gave authorization for us to literally kill 140,000 people in one fell swoop. And he said they're not at the point of forgiveness, because where does that forgiveness start? Because of Pearl Harbor. You know, this is a cycle that goes over and over and over again. And I know I'm talking too long, but hey, he gave me the mic and said 30 minutes. We'll also have Dr. Linda White, who's going to talk about her story of reconciliation. Her daughter was murdered, and the murderer is on death row. And she knew that hate and violence is not the answer for peace, and she's going to share her story of reconciliation with the murderer of her child. Forgiveness is not something that we take lightly. It's a choice that we make every single day. But if we don't have peace within our soul, we can't love our neighbor as ourselves, which in the Christian tradition is one of our faith traditions, the highest commandment that Jesus gives us all. On Friday, we'll talk about a story of a Muslim, and this will be an enactment of his story. As a result of 9/11, he and two other people were shot in Dallas, Texas, in a convenience store. Some man who wanted to take revenge and hate went in and shot what he thought were Muslims and Arabs that he blamed for the 9/11 crashes into the World Trade Center. These were the most peaceful, loving people that you would have ever met. So we're going to tell his story and his process of reconciliation with the shooter and the guy who's now on death row. And he's working diligently to have him not executed as a result of his story. We'll also have a beautiful forgiveness workshop that will then build up to the Burning Bowl ceremony on Sunday. Anyway, we invite all of you to come to these magnificent events. These are big stories, big forgiveness stories, and our hope is that there is no unforgivable sin. And if you'll just look in your own life where there's some unforgiveness, maybe just by creating some inner peace within yourself, you'll be able to love your neighbor just a little bit more. Thank you.
Ms. Rahman, Amy, you all want to speak? She said it all. She said it all? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Let's get a picture again. Thank you. And we have one more. This is an RSVP Volunteer Recognition Day in the Concho Valley, September 11, 2014. Bruce, if you and Carlene McLaurin would come forward and receive this. And the proclamation reads, the theme of the 33rd West Texas RSVP Volunteer Recognition Events is RSVP Volunteers Spring into Service. And this annual recognition event provides an opportunity to recognize exemplary volunteerism and celebrate the service of volunteers who have already given tirelessly and selflessly to the service of others. And volunteering through RSVP brings older adults together for a common cause, promotes personal growth and self-esteem, and strengthens our communities. And this recognition reinforces the message that service by older adults benefits all involved and helps the RSV volunteers by keeping them active, healthy, and engaged. It helps our communities and nonprofits by utilizing the service of skilled volunteers, and it strengthens civic participation. And this event is being held on September 11, a National Day of Service and Remembrance. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim September 11, 2014 as RSVP Volunteer Recognition Day in the Concho Valley, and urge everyone to join in recognizing these special volunteers who through their service remind us each and every one how volunteer work can expand opportunity not only for those in need, but also for those who give. Bruce, I'm going to give you the microphone, buddy.
Very good, thank you.
I give you this.
My phone is vibrating. I don't know if that's important or not, but this is. For those of you that don't know, RSVP stands for the Retired Senior Volunteer Program. It's a group of people aged 55 and older, and in this part of West Texas, our oldest RSVP volunteer is 96. Okay. And on the 11th of September, we will hold a recognition luncheon here at the McNeese Convention Center for the volunteers. And for that, we are very grateful for their services. I'm fortunate to serve as the chairman of the advisory board, and although I don't know everybody's name that's an RSVP volunteer, when you see a sea of them out in front of you, it makes you really feel great. With that in mind, I've got one real short story to tell you. And it's about a fellow I knew that was a sportscaster out of Roswell, New Mexico. And one of his favorite lines when he gave his nightly sportscast dealt with teams that might not be very significant. And he'd read the score, and his comment was, "Who cares?" Well, today, this accolade that we've received from these folks back here and all of you out there proves one thing to me very succinctly. You care, and we're very grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's get Jake. Thank you very much. Y'all be good. We are now at the part of our meeting where we take public comment, which is where we give you an opportunity to approach the council, good or bad, pro or con. We listen to what you have to say. So if you have anything you want to address the council about, this is your opportunity. I do need to read the legalities, and then I will open it up to the floor. The council takes public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the council at this time. The council may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for a consent agenda item to move to the regular agenda for public comment. On public hearing items, public input will be received on each item immediately following the council discussion and prior to any action on the item. Each member of the public should make their remarks from the podium and begin by stating their name. Remarks by each citizen will be limited to 3 to 5 minutes unless waived by a council meeting member for all speaking on that matter. No individual will be allowed to speak more than once on any one subject until all citizens wishing to comment has done so. So I'm now opening up the floor. If there is anyone in the audience that wishes to approach the council with a request or statements or gripes or anything else, form a line, please. Just one person moving, that's Fred Hernandez. Were you coming this way, Fred? If there is no public comment, then I will turn it over to the council, and I will ask the council members, we'll start with Ms. Grind's staff, if there's anything that you need to say or want to say, statements made. Are there any items on the consent agenda that you wish to pull to the regular agenda? Ma'am, you're first.
I have no comments, but probably would like to pull items 9 and 19.
Mr. Boardman.
Yes, 13 and 17.
You gonna take the rest of them, Charlie?
Yes. Want to pull 11, 12, 15, and 19 off of the consent agenda. And I also would like to postpone on the regular agenda item number 25, since I brought this last meeting. I need just a little bit more time to do some research on that, so I'd like, not quite ready.
Very well. Marty?
What's left?
Oh,
Not much. There's 3 or 4 of them.
No, I have none.
Rodney?
I don't want to pull anything off, but I'd asked city staff, and I hadn't heard back. in our next meeting, we're going to have a discussion that may involve a supermajority vote. Have we figured out what the count is on a supermajority vote, just for the public record?
Well, I wasn't posed the question, but off the top of my head, I would say 6.
It is 6. So there was some question between 5 and 6. It is 6,
Okay.
though, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I will entertain a motion at this time
Mayor?
to.
What's that?
Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt. Item number 10 needs to be pulled. That is not even for consideration. It's just, it shouldn't be on there.
Pull number 10.
Yes, sir.
Well, that was one of the few that hadn't been pulled already.
No, I thought I got it. I thought I pulled it.
Short pulled it anyway. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve item number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 14, number 16, number 18, number 20.
Move
I-
to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, I do have a motion to approve from Charlotte. I do have a second from Rodney. Any further council discussion on this item, these items? Do I have any comment from the public on these items? And I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one, please, ma'am. Let's move on then to item number 9, which is consideration of approving and ratifying the meet and confer agreement between the City of San Angelo and the San Angelo Coalition of Police, SACOP, which establishes certain terms and conditions of employment for covered police officers to be effective October 1, 2014 through September 30, 2017, and authorizing the city manager to execute said agreement. Did you pull this, Don?
No.
Elizabeth, if you would like to start, or you want Lisa to start?
I know nothing about what's been going on in the process and would not necessarily consider this a consent agenda item.
Okay.
My own opinion, but I'd be more than happy to hear your presentation. I would appreciate it.
Okay. As you know, or may not know, we began the process of negotiation for this current, the contract upcoming in June of last year. And because the city has gone with meet and confer under the police association, we the process is that we need to negotiate certain expectations and employment provisions. And so the SACOP side of the table brought forward their desires early on, and we went over those for a number of months, and then it's the city's turn at that point to present their side of it. The key parts that we really stuck on the most, with the most discussion, was, of course, salaries. We were trying to implement a physical fitness program, and then we wanted to improve the hiring process so that we could get through that system without spending as much money as we do on applicants that wash out later in the system. So we had both sides of the table negotiated, or I'm sorry, surveyed salaries with our 13 sister cities or our comparable cities, and we came to an agreement, and the process is now that we will take them in the first year of the contract this October to 88.5% of the survey cities' average. And then in the following October of 2015, we'll take them to 91.75%. And then in October of 2016, it would be to 95% of the survey. Now, what we also did was, since we only know the numbers for this year, we can't predict what they'll be 2 years from now. We implemented a cap on the growth potential for those ranges so that we could minimize the impact that it might be to the budget. If salaries were to just soar and we had no cap on it, it would be difficult for us to perhaps get to 91.75%. So we put a growth in of 2.5%. A growth factor cap of 2.5%. And so each year we will survey HR, and I imagine the SACOP side will survey as well, and then we'll compare numbers. And what we will do is take 102.5% of whatever that survey is and take them to 91.75, and then survey again the following year and take them to 95. So that's the process on the salaries. As far as the physical fitness program, we came to an agreement to implement a program that in the first year of the contract will sort of grow in its infancy. They have access to a fitness program that's currently used by the DPS, and so what we've agreed to is to let our department establish their standards in a way that works for our department. And so the first year we'll be establishing baselines and getting standards built, and then they'll start having a fitness standard from that point forward. There's no incentive attached to that. It is simply a tool to try to get our employees in a better shape. And then the third item that was another big item was the hiring process. Right now, when we give the civil service exam, from that point forward, they're in the system and they go through the physical fitness program and they go through background checks and so forth. We found that there's a number of folks that get screened out during the background check for some simple things that if we'd have known up front, we would not have had the expense of going through all of the background checks. So we agreed to take the advice of the department and have some just standardized questions that are included with the application, and we screen out those people that don't meet the minimum standards at that point before we give them the civil service exam. So those were the 3 key points.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions that I had was, I noticed in there you mentioned the city marshals and the airport police. Why is there no mention of the fire marshals?
I beg your pardon?
Why is there no mention of the fire marshals? They're certified peace officers.
They're included as well. If you mean they weren't listed in the memo, because I don't think I listed any of them in the memo.
Well, in the under the background information where you list all of the involved peace officers, they're not listed in the first paragraph.
You're talking about in the agreement itself?
Mm-hmm.
It's because when we went back in 2007, the fire marshals signed off as not being part of Meet and Confer. And so they have never been part of Meet and Confer. And the city marshals out of municipal court and the airport police and those other groups did, but the fire marshals did not. They've been out of Meet and Confer since the beginning.
I understood that the city marshals and the airport police were also in that same agreement.
No, they're in the group that accepted Meet and Confer.
Okay.
And so we've kept them the same as we go through the whole. Every time we change the scales, they change for them as well.
Okay.
Further questions or comments, Charlotte?
Well, to me, I find this a little bit the cart before the horse. I'm not opposed to an increase in their salaries. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying until I, as a council member, see the final budget that is going to be presented with line item adjustments across the board for raises that are being given to other city employees and stuff, I don't feel right about ratifying their agreement is to what I've read in the paper and all the press releases that they're getting a 5% salary increase. I don't know that for a fact, have not seen those final budget items, so I feel it's a little premature to ratify any amounts of monies in this, so I would prefer to wait until we do that portion.
I certainly understand your position on wanting to make that decision later. I can tell you that this is the identical dollar figure that's been presented throughout the budget process, the Meet and Confer line item that's been up there. And I know you haven't voted that in, but
not seen yet all the final budget items, as a comparison. This is a 3-year ratification. It's kind of hard, that crystal ball, when I don't know even if we're going to have funds, Mr. Morris's rainy day fund. I don't know the dollar amount that is there, so I'd rather see this come with the final budget part.
okay.
Further comments? Rodney?
Well, I'm kind of the opposite on that. We're going to have to figure it out. To me, they need to get the money, and then if we have problems with something else in the budget, then we have to fix those problems, but we need to move forward on this. I move that we accept this proposal as presented.
Second.
Marty, do you have anything to say on this?
Mayor, I do want to mention that
Yes,
as
boss.
far as the dollar amount associated with these proposed increases, it is included in the fiscal 2014-2015 budget that's been presented to City Council. So that is a number that has been accounted for.
And if I remember correctly, when we authorized meet and confer, the last line said that if the City Council says we can't afford this, then we don't do it.
Absolutely.
So if, regardless of what meet and confer, what y'all met and what y'all talked about, if we get to a point where we can't afford it, it only takes 4 people to put it back where we started. So I don't have a problem with go ahead and adopting the budget and getting this thing started. And if we couldn't afford it, we wouldn't have approved it in staff. And if we get to where we can't afford it, then we'll go back to where we can afford it.
And if you recall, in the last contract, we did get faced with that in 2010, and we went to the membership and asked them to postpone a year. So when the funds aren't there, we do have a mechanism by law that protects us.
And I think our officers understand that.
Well, and to some degree, I think we use this as then the level that we want to keep all other employees at as well. So I've seen them, in a sense, being the lead in keeping salaries up for all of the employees in the city. So that's why I don't have any trouble with this right now. It's what I'm going to look to, though, for everyone else.
Sure.
Somehow, some way.
Okay.
Do I have public comment on this item? Officers, y'all happy with this? As happy as you can be?
Thank you for your time. I will tell you that
And
it's
you
very
are
arduous.
Corby Kennedy,
I am
aren't you?
Corby Kennedy.
Yeah.
I'm the president of the San Angelo Coalition of Police. It is an arduous process. Obviously, it took from June until we went to our ratification vote last Wednesday. We passed that vote 126-4. So I think by the vote itself, I think they're pleased with it. Of course, we'd always like to have more. When we started this process, we wanted to lessen the burden on this department by, we were losing people to other departments. Unfortunately, police work is very mobile these days. Officers can be very portable within the state, and we want to keep who we train, and we want to keep them here. So I think with this process and with this contract, I think that we've done that, and I think we've done very well. City staff worked on it hard, we worked on it hard, and I think it's amenable to both sides. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Corby. And when we have the cities of Lubbock and Abilene advertising and buying billfolds in the city of San Angelo trying to get police officers, it tells you the extent of our training and the importance of our police department. We've got to protect them. I do have a motion. I do have a second that we accept this as it is written. If I have no further comment, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one.
Thank you.
6-0.
Yeah, 6-0.
6-0.
Yeah. Silvis is not here today. Put a 6-0 on this one. All right, we have pulled item number 10. Thank you, gentlemen. We pulled item number 10. Number 11 is consideration of ratifying the adoption of the City of San Angelo Development Corporation's Business Retention and Expansion, BR&E, Economic Incentive Policy. Roland Pena, did you pull this one, Elizabeth?
No, sir.
I did.
You did? Okay. You want to get it started then?
Yes, I would just like to hear about it from Mr. Pena.
You're on, sir.
Good morning. Well, we're very excited about the program. The board and staff realized that we really didn't have a structured business retention and expansion plan of action. So we put together a draft plan with short-term and long-term objectives and a 4-stage process of how to implement that plan and some of the resources that are going to be needed. It's a strategy that helps us take care of our own so that we nurture and we support our local businesses. Part of that, those resources that are needed to help implement the plan is this economic incentive policy. We have guidelines that help to formulate incentives for those companies that we're trying to attract. But we really didn't have anything in place to assist our local businesses. And so we wanted to concentrate on the business and retention expansion of those companies and those businesses. And it took several weeks. We met on a weekly basis. We created an ad hoc committee of the board members and staff and our partners, the Chamber of Commerce as well as Small Business Development Center. And we developed 9 categories that we would like to utilize. Obviously, not all categories will apply to a local business. However, it'll be a menu. So we tailor the package for a local business. It's really modeled after what we currently use for tiers, although we've enhanced our policy. We want to make it administrative, just like tiers, so that we can move quickly, that we are more efficient, and businesses can rely on what we say and what we introduce to them. We also want to be able to have the marketing pieces that will be more abbreviated, but at least businesses can, with more certainty, understand what we have to offer. We think that this will help continue to retain our businesses. We did look at the smallest businesses and the smallest capital investments, and we had a lot of discussion and put a lot of work into it. I hope you're proud of what you see before you. We did pilot test it with a local company that has been here for many, many years, and they're looking to expand, and we received a very good reception from what we put together, and so at least in that case it works. The board approved the policy, making it effective October 1, and that's what we would like to do, is pursue with that.
Okay, Mr. Vinay, I know that we've talked about it. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but this is half-cent sales tax money, and I believe that there should be discussion on record for the television, for memberships out there, for them to understand what is going on and what it's doing. Do we have the printed version available of the plan that you're just talking about and these incentive policies? Do we have it in writing somewhere that the citizens can pull it up and look at it online? Or do you have printed material that?
Well, what you have is what was in the board packet and also in your packet. So, to the extent that we were waiting on the approval from the board, that just happened last Wednesday, and we're waiting on your ratification. And yes, that'll be published and it'll be available online.
That's what I was looking forward to, talking about it just a little bit instead of just schmoothing right over it. So move to approve as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second that, but can I say?
Yes.
I have a question too.
Yes, ma'am.
And first of all, I just want to say that I commend Roland, because when Roland came into this position, it's been, about 6 months ago?
Yes, sir.
He's doing everything I think that the council has asked him to do, and more so. And I'm really have grown to appreciate his job, way more in the last 6 months because of what he's doing. I've worked with him on a couple of little bitty projects, and he goes out of his way to do everything I think that we need him to do for this. So I really think he's doing a great job, and I hope that it continues to go that way.
Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Do you believe that the process that has been developed is the most objective process possible, in the sense of an existing business would meet certain criteria, be scored, and then that's how you determine the incentive available to them?
I believe it is. Obviously, when we did the pilot test, we explained to the company that we're working with what we had been doing. And in fact, as they came to us seeking assistance, I delayed the discussions because I explained to the company that we were working through this process. And so when we presented the information and showed how they ranked and what was available to them, it was, it was sort of a knock your socks off type of response. I mean, they were very pleased. They could tell that there was a lot of work put into it. But also, we seek that feedback from existing businesses. We went also to our internal staff, the different departments, to determine if there were any issues, and took their feedback, and we incorporated their feedback. So we're listening, and I think this will continue to evolve to make it more effective and more efficient. And yes, I think it's objective, and we'll continue to evaluate this on an annual basis.
And how does the council approval play into the process that you've designed?
Well, at this point, it's your ratification that'll help us move forward on October 1, so that we can now begin to have administrative authority to be able to work with businesses. We can begin to market to local businesses this program and let them know that there's that we care for them too, and we're ready to move forward. That allows us to move very quickly. Obviously, we will continue to publish notice of those anticipated expenditures. The board did allocate a certain line item for specifically business retention and expansion, but everything that you're doing now is, plays a role in making us more efficient. So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Once the Development Corporation determines an incentive, does that come to council? Or will it stop at the COSA DC level?
It stops at the COSA DC level, but you'll receive an annual report of what we've been able to do with the program.
I think that's excellent.
Okay.
Further comment? Do I have public comment on this? I do have a motion and a second to approve this as presented. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Put a 6-0 on that one. Thank you, Roland.
You're welcome.
Number 12 is consideration of ratifying the approval by the City of San Angelo Development Corporation of the funding of a change order for Case Toll Solutions Incorporated Electrical Service. Who pulled this one?
I did.
Okay, you got it.
Just would like to explain to the public the additional funds.
Yes, ma'am. First of all, the council may recall that we had this item before you.
Identify yourself, my
I'm sorry.
friend.
Bob Schneeman, Economic Development Coordinator. I'm not Roland Pena, which says here.
Stand corrected.
But that was pretty obvious. Anyway, this item was originally approved for not to exceed $20,000. The reason that we're doing this is because when the property was originally marketed to the buyer, they were led to believe erroneously, or at least not to believe, that there was three-phase power available to the property. None of us were aware of it at the time either. None of the staff. John Dugan, who made the initial contact with the company, was not aware that three-phase power was not available. I certainly wasn't, and I don't specifically recall whether the subject ever came up, but we certainly did not tell them that it wasn't available, and I think it's a reasonable assumption that in an industrial park, three-phase power is available at all properties. When we came with the original $20,000 change order, that was based on some sketches that the contractor for Case Toll had come up with, and when we did the final, when AEP did the final design, and also provided for future extension beyond Case Toll, the price came out a little higher than, not a little, came out about $10,000 higher than we thought it would. COSA DC approved the entire amount with a stipulation that we try to, the staff, go back to to Case Toll and try to negotiate sort of a 50-50 split, or you pay for part, we'll pay for part, something like that. And so that's what we're here before you today to get approval of.
Thank you. Move to approve.
Second.
Are they going to negotiate with us?
I don't know at this point. I think they will.
Because we've already incentivized them to the amount of $5,000 an acre on the property. I voted against that, by the way.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I think that's enough incentive. I do understand the problem with three-phase electricity, so I do think they ought to be paying half of it. So that is the motion, that we approve this with the understanding, we ratify this with the understanding that the Case Toll will pick up one half of the expense. Is that the motion?
No, I don't think that was the
It's
motion.
not half, it's just negotiating, right?
They may negotiate, but we're going to.
We don't know what the number is.
And that's why I'm saying this would be a good time to put it in the motion.
Yeah.
If we want them to pay half, that we will ratify this.
I don't want them to pay half. I think that we should have had three-phase out there 15-plus years ago, and I can't believe we're still talking about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree with her. I mean, we're only helping ourselves out on this for future development, because the next companies that come along, they have to have three-phase.
Right. This is infrastructure. I think that we need to bear the burden of this.
The other part of this is that we asked for the contractor to deliver three-phase service to the corner of Case Toll property. You'll notice another item that you're going to be approving is for the sale of property. Had it not been for that three-phase being available at that corner of the property, we wouldn't have been able to sell those future lots, so.
Right.
I understand it, and I move to approve, but it's a hiccup that I want us to talk about. Again, it's half-cent sales tax money, and the citizens deserve an explanation.
Yeah.
But do we need it? Yes. Do we need to pay it? Yes.
Well, but he's talking about negotiating. I mean, that does help us out. If we can get them to chip in some, then it'll help out a little bit.
And since we've already incentivized them once and thought we were through, and that's really what's bothering me, is this is a second incentive, and, they had as much responsibility as we did to know if there was or was not three-phase electricity on that lot. So the motion has been made, it has been seconded, that we approve this. I'm not real comfortable with it, but I'm just one vote. But I think that they do need to pay for half of it. So motion's been made. Do I have further council comment? Do I have comment from the public on this? I'll call for the vote. All in favor of accepting this as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Put a 5-1 on that one, please. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Number 13 is consideration of ratifying the approval by the City of San Angelo Development Corporation of funding for the proposed Smith Boulevard and Paul Land Boulevard improvements, construction budget, and related action thereto for purposes of awarding the project bid to RFP ES 0314, Reese Albert, in the amount of $718,255.80, amending the previous budget from $512,900 to $753,268.59, and allowing approximately 5% contingency in the amount of $35,012.79, with a total increase in project funds in the amount of $240,368.59. And who?
I did.
I think both of y'all pulled this. Don?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Take it, please, sir.
Well, my deal was, this is a big increase, and I just kind of wanted an explanation as far as why it increased $250,000.
Yes, sir. This was one of those projects that has taken quite a while to finally come to fruition. It was started back in 2012. I got here in 2013, and so there's been a lot of changes as far as the widths of Paul Lynn.
Did you identify yourself?
No, sir. It's Ryan Ward. I'm with the Engineering Services Division, and I've actually worked on this project. This is one of the first projects that I took on when I got here to the city. But really, it comes down to the infrastructure of the project and the cost of materials, to answer your question, Mr. Vardaman. We're kind of at a stage, being in the energy sector now, we've seen a lot of projects locally change as far as the numbers go that you can estimate, but things are changing on such a rapid basis in the oil field, and the materials that are used to build, of course, our roads are the same things that's getting shipped out to the oil field. For example, on this project, the base material came in almost double, which is your structural surface below the pavement. And so that's one of those things you can't, it's almost like trying to hit a moving target at this point. We're trying to, let things settle out and see where it's going. But as you can see, we had one bidder, and that also reflects some of the costs. But we're really just at kind of a time in San Angelo's growth, I think, right now, that we're seeing that across the board in every project that we do as far as construction costs.
Okay. I also know that there was a problem with some drainage on that. Did we have that all taken care of?
Yes, sir. There was on Mr. Mueller's property, which is to the east of Paul Lynn Boulevard, to the northeast there. We worked with Mr. Mueller several times, made contact with him 3 times, drove the site with him, and it was something that we could never acquire that easement, and that's what's held this project up. It would have been let. We had the design done last year when we came back and changed the funding at that time, and it was one of those things that we could never get the easement. We worked with him, and he was not willing to let that go, so we had to redesign the road, shrink down, but we're at 48-foot width now, which allows for 4 lanes, which is still the main core of that roadway, and it gets students in and out, development, everything. So it's still a viable project.
Okay, so that's all worked out because, it was set at a price, it came back, and then went up and came back,
Yes,
and
sir.
now it's went up again. So I think we need to get this thing taken care of before it goes up again. So this is the final hurrah.
Yes, sir.
Charlotte?
Well, I guess whoever invented the saying, time is money, was exactly right, because, I mean, the previous budget, the 512,900, that's not exactly right. This has been on the books since 2012, and it was originally discussed with the council in that time frame of 400,000. And then we had to adjust that to another 112,900, or another $113,000.
Yes, ma'am.
And now we're looking at adjusting it again. So from something that was originally 400,000 and it is now 753,000, Mr. Valenzuela, that really hits home with time is money.
Yes, ma'am, but of
And-
course, as Ryan just mentioned as well, we have some hurdles that need to be overcome, and again, we try to acquire easements as quickly as we possibly can. Other options we have, of course, is condemnation, but you're talking about extending that even longer, and then you start talking about even more money, so you're right, time is money.
We have
And those
another
were my
project that has
objections.
easement issues also, a drainage project that has easement issues, and that could have a significant impact on that budget also. So we agree that.
Absolutely.
Do I have further comment from council? Marty?
I guess I got a question.
Yes, sir.
You made a remark a while ago that having one bidder reflects, approximately what do you think one bidder costs?
Well, it's hard to put an actual dollar amount on something like that. Obviously, you can look at our Red Arroyo project that came in, and we had two bidders on that, and we had almost $500,000 worth of difference in the overall cost. I think anytime you incorporate various competition in there, you're going to see cost differences. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of the business. It's a lot of kind of what you're seeing around the state. A lot of the contractors are so busy when you have one bidder, and that's all that there is out there, then there's no competition involved. So the costs inherently are higher normally. But it's hard to say, put an actual dollar amount, what it could have been differently with another bidder.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I'll entertain a
Move to
motion.
approve as presented.
Second.
Do have a motion to approve as presented from Charlotte, and Mr. Vardaman has seconded that. If I have no further comment from council, I'll open it up to the public. Is there comment from the public on this much needed road? If there is none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor of accepting this proposal as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Drop a 6-0 on that one, please, ma'am.
Thank you.
Let's move on now to number 15, which is consideration of ratifying the authorization of the City of San Angelo Development Corporation of the sale to Schubert Construction to two tracts, approximately 5 acres each of land in the industrial park adjacent to and immediately north of and adjacent to Cased Hole Solutions tract, the exact size configuration to be determined by a survey on the ground at a price of $25,000 per acre, and authorizing the Costa D.C. Board President to sign a real estate sales contract approved by the city's legal department. Mr. Schneeman.
And I am still Bob Schneeman.
Okay. Who did pull this in, Charlotte?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you really want to know the truth, I'm just trying to get back at Roland for calling me before 7 a.m. the other morning. Just kidding.
But he doesn't have to come up here and do that.
I really do just want to hear about it, talk about it. So, the folks that don't have computers, they depend on watching on TV to know what's going on. So just want to hear a little bit about it. Please, Bob.
Okay. Council may recall about a year ago we had an appraisal done on industrial park property, and it came in at $25,000 an acre. So that, and I had specific direction from council after the Cased Hole sale that we wouldn't sell anything for less than $25,000 an acre. So that was our starting point on this one. We've also asked that they extend the three-phase power as part of their contract. And they know that they don't have it. They know they're going to have to extend it. It's available to them starting at their southern property line, and they'll extend based on the AEP design. They're looking at buying two tracts of approximately 5 acres each. I've given you two possible layouts. One that has a frontage of about, minimum frontage of 200 feet that extends all the way back to an existing drainage easement along the eastern edge of the property.
that makes some rather unwieldy tracks, if you will. They're 200 feet wide and over 1,000 feet long. Not an ideal development scenario, but it is one scenario. The other would be to limit those tracks to a depth that stopped at an existing overhead electrical easement that brings that down to an 828-foot depth, and the frontage would be about 276 feet for 2 tracks at about 5¼ acres each. They'd like to keep it above 5 acres because 5 acres is the cutoff for requiring a subdivision plat. I wasn't absolutely certain that we could do the second option prior to late Friday afternoon when I talked to Russell Gully from SKG Engineering. They've done a lot of the drainage work out there. One of the things that we can do with this, if you see on your exhibit, is we're showing a 7.6 acre tract to the rear of these. I wanted to make sure that it would be possible to do enough channelization of that easement, drainage easement, to be able to recover some portion of that property, and it appears in discussing with Mr. Gully that we can. We'll have to do a survey to determine, and a survey and a drainage study to determine the exact amount that we can get back, but he believes that we can do this, and so I think we'll probably, if the buyer is amenable to it, we'll probably move forward with the 2 5¼ acre tracts.
Any comment?
Move to approve as presented.
Do have a motion to approve. Does anybody want a second?
Second.
Do we have a second? Further comment from council? I like this one a lot better than the last one, Bob.
Thought you might.
Anyone else from the public care to comment on this before we vote? Then I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Drop 6-0 on that one. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Isn't that a short break?
Y'all want to take a break now? It is 10:07, and then get back, and we'll start with number 17. Let's take a few minutes. 10:24, I'll call the meeting back to order. Number 17, which is consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a long-term service agreement with Water Remediation Technology, LLC WRT, for maintenance, media installation, media removal, and decommissioning of the WRT radium removal system for a 10-year term to include an annual base treatment charge of $115,000 and no dollars, and base volume charges of 59 cents per 1,000 gallons of base volume. Charges adjusted annually for inflation as provided therein and related documents. Mr. Dixon. Who pulled this from? Charlotte? And Charlotte and Don? One of y'all want to get it started, and we'll have Ricky answer the questions.
Go ahead, Don.
All right, I'll take off. I know I came into all this well on its way as far as me being on the council, and I just had a couple of questions that I couldn't really get out of our background information. The base volume charge of 59 cents per 1,000, is that already included in our bills now, or would it be added on to our bills? Because I know it's just me and my wife, and even with that would increase our water bill about $30 a year.
Don, my understanding, and Michael,
Well, I think the absolute clarity is we're not talking about adjusting rates here. These are terms within the contract for the service provider.
and I think when they got the Hickory loan, that the rates that were set up to repay that included this. Is that correct?
Included an estimate that Will provided for costs, but it was a lump sum amount. So there will be, as we turn the plant on and operate, we get an idea what kind of power it's going to use, what kind of chemicals are going to be necessary. We'll have to refine that estimate. But what you see here as far as base rate and minimum charges, those have to do with the terms in the contract that we as the city will pay the vendor for the service they provide. It has nothing to do with the bills or the base rates and usage rates that we use to bill our customers.
Okay, so we're proposing a 10-year contract. So will that withstand for 10 years?
I think it's too early to answer that, Don. I don't think so.
Now, the question is about the terms of the contract, right?
Well, the term of the contract. In other words, I understand what you just said now, we're in good shape. But in 3, 5, 7, 10 years, are we going to have to go up and take this 59 cents back to the consumers?
Is your question about the rates we charge our water users, or is your question about the rates that this provider charges us?
Yes.
Okay.
Somebody has to pay that. So are we going to be paying it through our consumers, or is it already built into the loan estimate for the 10-year duration of the contract?
We built a lump sum in there, but it was just a lump sum, and Will was not specific about what he included or not. We are not proposing a rate increase at this time on this agenda item to cover this cost. However, to say that rates won't have to go up for 10 years would be probably inaccurate and probably irresponsible.
And I'm not talking about anything but this specific amount here, the 59 cents per thousand, because that's expensive. That's way expensive.
And that rate, there's a inflationary price built into this contract. And also, as we developed and begin using that Hickory water, the base rate charges for the radium removal, if the strength of the radium is less than what we first anticipated, that charges will go down also. There's a factor in there, and if the strength goes up, they will go up. So it can float a little bit.
Ricky, another thing to point out, of course, is that the Ivy water will be the largest water consumption that we'll be using.
Sure.
So this is really more of we get to a position of emergency, we need to use this water, we'll use it. So as far as water being treated, all water, of course, is only going to be Hickory, and we'll be using the majority of Hickory water, Ivy water for the most part, so.
Yeah, we'll use all the surface water that we have available before we get into our groundwater supply.
Right.
We will continue to bank this water in case of, like you said, an emergency situation. This is all we have to rely on. So.
Then my next question is on the 115,000. Is that an annual charge?
Yes.
Irregardless of the 59 cents per
That's
thousand?
correct.
Okay. So we're going to pay that whether we
use it or not. Just
Okay.
for the availability of the media in case we need it.
Okay, and once again, it's in the same vein as far as we're not going to be looking at going up on our consumers' prices to cover this 115,000.
Well, I don't think we want to say that we're not going up to cover this, because if we go up, we'll be covering this and other items. And right now, I think from a financial perspective, we're counting on the rate study to help us identify what those ideal rates are and how we allocate those costs. One of the big topics in the last rate study had to do with residential versus commercial burden and who should be bearing a bigger part of that burden. The estimate used to go up when we last raised rates for operation of this facility, that estimate was created before the facility design was even complete.
Okay.
And so, from a financial perspective, I'm very much counting on what I believe would be greater accuracy in determining those costs, those future costs, as it comes out of that study.
And we'll still be paying these same rates even if we blend the water, because the radium has to be
Correct.
reduced.
Well, we can blend some of it if it doesn't go through the plant. But when we bring this plant online and do the startup, we're going to be using a small amount of this water. We can't just, we start it, we got to keep going. We can't cut it off. When this media gets wet, we got to keep using it. So there'll be some water going through it all the time.
Okay, so, all right, that pretty well answers that question. I mean, we're going to be paying the 59 cents a thousand and doing some minor blending with the reduction in the radium. We can't use the blending to reduce the radium without it going through the media.
You can if you get the volumes right.
Okay.
But if it goes through the media, we'll be paying that 59 cents a thousand.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, in addition, one of the controls we have to make sure that we're not charging too much is the review we do twice a year. You remember, it was your suggestion that we review twice a year the fund balance. If that fund balance gets too big, we consider rebating or refunding or discounting rates in the future. The problem we've run into recently, though, is not that we've charged too much. It's that the revenue has been too low, and we don't really have a protection in place to protect that situation where revenue's too low. And so again, we're looking forward to the completion of that study to assist us with determining the best way to provide some protection there also.
Bueno. Further comment? Yes, ma'am.
No, I'm finished.
Okay. I remember the proposal well when we first looked at this in 2012, the first part of 2013, January of 2013, and there were 3 different proposals that we could choose from, and the one that this council chose was the 59 cents per 1,000 gallons, and that's if we take 5 million gallons a day from the Hickory, we're going to pay 59 cents per 1,000 gallons of that for the removal of the radium.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what we're paying. I have that original agreement in your original notes from January 15th of 2013, and the agreement that was proposed at that time, and not anywhere in there does it mention, that I've been able to find, nor do I recall the $115,000 annual fee. It's not in there.
The original agreement, and I don't think it was included in the background information in the January meeting at council, but it's always been in that agreement. But the original agreement that we talked about that number was $90,000 for 6 million gallons a day. When we increased the number of wells that we were going to use and produce 9 million gallons a day, we increased the treatment and procured the equipment to treat an additional 2 million gallons a day of that, and that's why the 90 went to 115. But that number, that original number of 90 has always been in there. And then it went to 115 when we increased it from the 6 to 8 million gallons a day.
But you agree with me that the 115 was never in the proposed amount in the agreement, and I didn't find the 90,000 in the original agreement to move forward this. It just upset me that it's 115,000 more a year added on top of, and I didn't find anything in there that said that 115 wouldn't be for 10 years. That rate doesn't move up. If it's in there, then somebody please call the location of it to me, because I didn't find it.
Ricky, my understanding is that the 115 is a minimum.
That's correct.
That's
a minimum charge. And then 59 cents a 1,000 on top of that.
Well, I ran some quick numbers, and unless my math fails me, which is entirely possible, that 59 cents per 1,000 spread paid over a certain number of acre feet yields 115,000. That number of acre feet is just shy of 600 acre feet per year. That sounds like a minimal use kind of scenario pulling from the well field. And so if there weren't a minimum charge and we ran 600 acre feet through there, that would give us that same amount.
So just to lump it up in big numbers, the $7,390,000 a year is approximately the cost per year that the Hickory is going to be, the charge to this company on the proposal. Is that correct?
Ask that question again. I'm sorry, Charlotte.
Well, I'm looking at the proposal that on the 59 cents,
Okay.
the estimated, quantity of water used will be the 11 million gallons at 59 cents, and that's the 6,490,000, and with the volume charge, which at the 90,000, it's 115 now, so that's going to be more, but then it was 900,000, but that makes the total proposal of $7,390,000.
And you said that was at the 11 million gallons a day number? That's
No, the estimated quantity that they will clean. That's the estimated quantity of water that they're going to clean, that they gave that in the proposal.
Okay.
Is that per year or over the life of the system?
That's what I'm asking you. It says after 10 years, there's no charge, but that's for 10 years.
I'm sorry, what document are you looking at?
It's prepared for council on January 13th, and it's the proposal form of the radium removal process by this company. This WTR, water radium removal.
Right.
Do you remember this? Go ahead. Okay.
Ms. Farmer, I believe what you're looking at it also includes the equipment cost. So when those bids were open in January of 2013, what we received was the equipment cost and the treatment and disposal cost, which is a 59 cents per thousand, and the design cost at 150,000. There were three.
Can he look at
like
it?
Like you said, there were three proposals
Can I show him?
that were based on minimum guaranteed amounts to WRT, and the one that was chosen was the one that guaranteed zero usage through the treatment facility, which would be would give the city the greatest advantage.
I don't want to be confused as to what we're approving today with what we looked at the beginning, that change to 115 instead of the 90. That's a change, and that makes our cost more. And I could not find anywhere in here that it allowed them to raise that on an annual basis if that was locked for 10 years. If that's not correct, then...
Right, so it's like 11 billion. So.
You're correct on the long-term service agreement back on that 11 million. It's 11 million thousand, so it's like 11 billion gallons, 59 cents a thousand. The 115 number invoice monthly is under Exhibit A of the proposal that is before you for approval today. So I guess you've lost me on your question. I mean, everything that you've said is correct.
I just want to talk about the true dollars here, to know what's going in, that we're going to be paying for regardless, and I'm not clear where the removal, the radium, where they're depositing it to. That's never been made clear to me that I can recall. I know they're going to put it in the, what do you call those big cylinder deals, and we can only store up to so many, but then we got to pay a price to haul it off. Is this 59 cents?
That's included in this 59.
Is included in
Right.
hauling it off to
Yes.
get it away from the site.
Right.
I want to make sure that we've talked about it. It's included in that.
It is.
The 115 is more. Want to know why?
It's a-
And I could not find where they have the right in that 10 years to increase that 59 cents per thousand gallon. And if it's in there, somebody pointed out, I didn't find it. I mean, I like it if it's not there, but I don't want to just assume that that is correct and have this to come back up.
Good.
In other words, you have the inflationary factor built into that within the contract.
Right.
I know that looking at the agreement, my understanding, of course, was any water consumed, it's up to 1,000 gallons. If it's just 1,000 gallons, then it's 59 cents. We have the right to minimize the consumption of how much water is going to be treated, is my understanding of this contract. So if it's 1 million gallons per day or 500,000 gallons per day, in this agreement, we're allowed to do that without having a maximum that we have to use or a minimum that we'd have to use.
Right. There's a minimum charge, 115,000.
Mhm.
It's under 3.1 in the financial terms of the agreement. Base treatment charge of 115,000 per annum, invoiced monthly. Treatment charge of 59 cents per thousand, regardless of how much water goes
So
through
it's
there.
0, 1,000, or a million?
Or a million, or 6 million a day, or whatever that number is 59 cents. The 59 cents includes them bringing in the media, putting in the vessel, the
taking it
changing of the
away.
media, and the haul off and the disposal of that media.
That's what I couldn't find, was where it talked about the haul off and disposal of that product. That was an unknown when we were talking about it. Now, if you're telling me that the 59 cents covers that and the 115,000 feet a year covers that, then I'm much more comfortable than I was when I was reading this
It does.
weekend.
You explained this earlier, this was my understanding, when you said it earlier perfectly, that it went up because we expanded the well field.
Right,
It went
we
from 90
increased treatment from 6 million gallons a day to
Right.
8 million gallons a
Right.
day. That's why the minimum charge went up, from 90 to 115.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept it as presented.
Second.
Do we have a motion, or do we have a second? Any further questions from council?
Could I have my notes back? Thank you.
Do we have any public comment on this item? If not, I'm going to call for the vote. The vote is that we approve the $115,000 per year, 59 cents per thousand for treatment, determined by the amount of water that we treat in the facility. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Put a 6-0 on that one, please, ma'am. Number 19 is the second hearing, consideration of adopting an ordinance adopting the FY 214-215 budget, an ordinance of the City of San Angelo approving and adopting the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2014 and ending September 30, 2015, authorizing employee compensation schedules, providing for the general appropriation of funds, reserving unto the City Council the authority to transfer appropriations budgeted, ratifying transfers of appropriations occurring in the 2013-2014 fiscal year, and amending that budget ordinance accordingly, providing for lapse of all unencumbered or unobligated funds for the prior fiscal year and for carryover of all appropriations of encumbered, obligated, or restricted funds, reserving unto the City Council the power only as permitted by law to amend or make changes in the budget for municipal purposes, providing authority for the city manager or his designee to make certain adjustments from time to time in between budgeted allocations, authorizing the city manager or his designee to apply for certain grants and execute any related documents, and providing for the filing of the budget. This budget will raise more total property taxes than last year's budget by $2,805,876,000. That is a rate of 9.75%. And of that amount, $471,890 is tax revenue to be raised from new property added to the tax roll this year. And who pulled this one?
I did.
Yes, ma'am.
A couple of questions. In looking at what is in the packet on this, I think it's a summary, which I was showing you earlier, Morgan.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you kind of say briefly why the city manager budget appears to have increased by $25,000?
That is a result of increased pay raises and benefits.
Okay. There's a couple of others that stand out. Public information.
Public information went up largely due to the PEG fee, the new fee that's being charged. Recall that we amended the fiscal year 14 budget mid-year for a partial year of levying that fee. Fiscal year 15 proposes the total year of levying that fee.
Was there any way to reduce the general fund contribution to public information because of the PEG fee going in?
No, ma'am, because the PEG fee is very restricted in how it can be used, that it will simply pick up additional expenses that we before have been ignoring, have not been able to fund.
On municipal court, it looks like it's going down by about $500,000.
And that's due to comparing the fiscal year 14 current amended budget to the fiscal year 15 proposed budget. In the fiscal year 14 current budget for municipal court of almost $2.9 million includes over $500,000 in restricted monies that have been carried over many, many years of collecting restricted monies that can only be used in a certain way. So once we amend the fiscal year 15 budget for carryovers, I think you'll see a very comparable amount in municipal court.
Okay, and there appears to be a big jump in finance.
Yes, ma'am, that's due to $610,000 of the Tom Green County Appraisal District contract. Before, we had that budgeted in like a non-departmental line, and we felt like it was more appropriate to put that under the finance office, who oversees that contract and pays those bills and ensures that everything is compliant. So $610,000 of the increase is the Appraisal District contract, and $40,000 of it is raises and increased pay and increased benefits.
Okay, and then you've explained why engineering has gone down. We don't need one inspector dedicated to airport.
Serving the airport,
okay.
yes, ma'am.
And then also in planning, that looks like a $75,000 reduction.
Yes, and that's due to comparing the fiscal year 14 amended budget, which included a carryover for, forgive me, I think the master developer plan, a consultant that we had a multi-year project, and so that's not included in the fiscal year 15 budget to use new monies for. If that project is not complete as of September 30th, we'll carry over whatever remaining balance into the new year in an amendment.
Okay, I'm going to jump. Street and Bridge, I think we know why that one's going up, because we agreed to put money in for street
Maintenance.
street maintenance. On police, it looks like it's gone up $1 million.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm catching up with you. A large portion of that is the meet and confer cost, increase to salaries, and the $678,000 referenced in Ms. Marley's memo earlier, and the remainder is due to target increase requests that were funded and approved at the council's work section July 7th.
Okay, and then the other on Parks and Rec, under Parks, there's about a $400,000 increase. That's water that we talked about before?
Yes, and the target increase request, yes.
It's sometimes difficult to look at numbers this, it's not line item, and I understand that. And I believe that that is the work of city staff, and a policy board doesn't have to get into line item. There is one comment I have, though, that I think I've learned through this process and talking to staff as well as appointees. And I think that the council budget as well as the city manager budget has a nice amount of travel and training. And I'm not sure that that is true of other departments for their employees as well as their boards and commissioners. And I would like to see, maybe through an amendment at some point in the near future, that be a little bit more equitable, because I think we're missing something if we're not keeping our employees trained. And I think it's dangerous, absolutely dangerous, to not be training our boards and commissioners. A lot of what they're doing is it can be very litigious, and I think they need to understand that. Thank you, Morgan.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that has been near and dear to my heart is maintenance of our buildings. I always believe you can pay me now, you pay me later, but you're going to pay me. I think in our budget hasn't went up on any type of maintenance, and we have a tremendous amount of square footage under roof as far as the city goes. I would like for us to look a little closer at that and see if we can't do something as far as having better maintenance on our building. What we do now is as soon as something's broke, we fix it, instead of trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit to where we're doing some preventive things. And I just, after looking at this, I know we had our big goals, and I can appreciate that very much, and the amount of monies that we put toward those. But there's also some things as far as the cemetery, the fort, and maintenance that I would like for us to look at somewhere along the line also.
Marty? Rodney? Charlotte?
Well, I was looking and I possibly missed it. Morgan, if you could point it out for me, the line items, the amount of money that we're going to receive because of the appraised values, the increase in appraised values of property, that amount of money was thrown into our budget, and I just wanted to see areas that we tightened our belt a little more than we normally have, Mr. Valenzuela, and I didn't see that readily. I mean, I don't see it.
Well, the additional monies that came in, as was mentioned a while ago, of course, we have council priorities, we have infrastructure, and you start looking at how much more is contributed to the streets and infrastructure of streets. There's a big portion of that. And so you start looking at the additional monies coming in. It's not because we're increasing staffing or we're being inefficient. Really, all those additional monies are going for a purpose. Whether it's infrastructure or whatever those items were that were addressed in our retreat are all in there.
In addition to that, if you look at the screen, the third item down, pay-as-you-go capital, that capital line had approximately 1.5. It actually has 1.7 million and change in it. We've reserved a piece of that to contribute toward a new fire truck each year, or half of our fire truck each year. The remainder of that 1.5 million was utilized to help fund other council priorities. And so when you ask about belt tightening, that is an example. That's $1.5 million worth of belt tightening right there. That's the single biggest area where the belts were tightened.
And I know the belts have been tightened. When I first got on council, our car allowance budget was $1,200,000, and today it's less than $300,000. I mean, it has come down, and I appreciate that. I truly do. But as we try to adjust and have a tighter budget, or as tight as we can, I still would like to see a line item that is dedicated for future salary increases, so that money is in the budget. It's not so hard to find each year. It's not a guarantee, but as I think the county does, 2.5% to 3% per year of their budget is for the next year's salary increases. And I just think it's better planning on our part. We don't have to hunt and go find if we're dedicating some monies to that. And since property taxes are up, and yes, it needs to go to streets, I definitely believe that, and the infrastructure and the water lines. My goodness, for those who don't know, we had, 3 water main breaks on Sherwood Way between Saturday and Sunday and Monday. And granted, things are going to break, but I do want to plan and see it in there that we're planning on salary increases as we're receiving increase in funds. We don't budget for it. I would like to see us budget for it.
Well, the increases that have been discussed so far are in this budget. They're not in one line item. They're in the salary lines throughout the various departments.
And there are some priorities and objectives that we're working on at this point to really address specific goals for each department based on core services to see where new efficiencies can be had. And really one of the big goals that we have is to really establish some solid performance measurements based on those goals this coming fiscal year and tie that into the budget. And I truly do believe that we'll see better efficiencies as well in this coming fiscal year.
Well, and this is very minor. It's a drop in the bucket, but if employees know that, hey, for us to work more efficiently, equipment take care of, that money goes into a future salary increase for them. And I'm going to the yellow cones, when we go out and we work and dig up a line and we work on it and then we put yellow cones around it, I happen to know of a place where yellow cones has been sitting in that same place for almost a year. You know, staff should be keeping up with those little items. So, you know, pick them up, bring them back to the warehouse so that we don't have to keep buying more stuff. I mean, they're still sitting there. So that is something that if the employees thought, hey, if I take better care of this, the money I help the city save goes toward my salary increase next year.
One of the things that Ms. Grindstaff mentioned was training and travel budgets. And, you know, we took a tremendous stride this year when council set those big goals. But some of these smaller goals are worthy of consideration too, and we'd like you to keep those in mind. Both the training and travel, what is your expectation for training and travel, and also Mr. Vardaman's comment about facilities. What are we doing on facilities? We don't just have to shoot for big goals. We want to set those smaller and intermediate goals also. And so we value those comments, and we agree that training and travel can be difficult. Some years the demand is high, and some years it's fairly routine. The same with facility maintenance. So we appreciate those comments and hope you'll be ready to help us with some of those smaller goals also in the next budget cycle.
I think I would say those would be like organizational values. I mean, they're either this organization's values or they're not, but, you know, maintenance and our maintenance group does a great job. You know, it's all based on the resources they have available to them to do the best job or the most efficient job they can. But I think organizationally, I would certainly hope that we want to be more proactive given the opportunities we have right now with the economy than reactive. And I've said what I need to say, though, about travel and training, and I think that's plays into, though, employee compensation. I mean, I think that's another important component to that.
Further comment from council? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Do I have a motion to approve as presented with a second? Do I have comment from the public? Call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one. And I believe we have now completed the consent agenda.
20? Number 20?
You pulled another one?
No. I just was making sure we did. Now we get to the have it marked. Yes, okay.
Let's move on to F, which is public hearing and comment. Number 21 is the first public hearing and some consideration of introducing an ordinance amending the Water Advisory Board membership composition. An ordinance of the City of San Angelo, Texas, amending Chapter 2 entitled Administration, Article 23900 entitled Water Advisory Board, more particularly by amending Section 23901 entitled Created Members, in order to revise the membership requirements and qualifications of Water Advisory Board, providing for severability, providing for an effective date of this ordinance. Mr. Dixon, you are on, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As you can recall, last week we brought this to y'all for y'all's consideration, and we added, at that time, y'all wanted some specific wording in the document to include the meeting schedule, and we have included that in the revised ordinance that you have before you today that makes the meetings at least quarterly and more often if necessary. Also sets in the board shall keep in their bylaws about the unexcused absences, as Rodney brought up before. Board members shall be deemed to have resigned. The city manager will recommend a policy for excusing absence to be adopted in the board and its bylaws. So this is kind of the complete package now, we think, is the makeup of the board, the additional members that y'all requested, the application process as reviewed by the city manager, and then his recommendations to y'all for appointment and the specific board members for the other organizations. So would entertain any questions that there might be now.
And we looked at this pretty closely last meeting, and Rodney, I think, did have the most questions on. Does that answer your questions, Mr. Fleming? Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Do I have any other comments about this before we approve it? And what we're trying to do is get this Water Advisory Board in a position that the politics is not in it. The city manager will control it. We will have specified members to the board because we depend upon this Water Advisory Board to instruct us and to advise us on different issues of water. I do have a motion to approve. I believe Charlotte approved. I'll accept Elizabeth on the second. If I have no further comment from the council, I'll open it up to the public for comment. There is no comment from the public. I will call for the vote. All in favor of adopting this as presented with the amendments that Ricky has just brought in, please say aye.
Aye.
Excuse
Any
me,
opposed?
Mayor, it's introducing.
Introducing? Okay, to introduce the ordinance with the amendments that have been made to the ordinance. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one. Number 22 is consideration of adopting a resolution approving the San Angelo Performing Arts Coalition, SAPAC, authorization of the commemorative naming of the Performance Hall and Stage at the City of San Angelo City Auditorium, and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement for commemorative naming among SAPAC and the San Angelo Area Foundation, Elta, Joyce, Murphy, McAfee, and City. Mr. Wise, you are on, sir.
Well, I am excited today to bring a proposal to the council that will greatly
help us with our city auditorium project. As you recall, some time ago, council authorized SAPAC and the Area Foundation to look for potential commemorative naming rights at the San Angelo City Auditorium. We have had a member of our community who has stepped forward, and Ms. Elta Joyce McAfee, Murphy McAfee, has come with a proposal, and I bring that for you today to consider. Basically, this proposal would put commemorative naming rights on the auditorium. It would be known as the Elta Joyce Murphy Performance Hall and Stage at City Auditorium. So that is what is before you today. The family generously brings a proposal of $3 million that would be used toward the project for the San Angelo Auditorium. And as you can see in the background information, that naming right would be in place for the longer of the two, one for 50 years after the death of the donor, or until substantial renovations are needed on the auditorium, which would things that have outlasted their life, and so you'd need major renovations to continue that use for public performance. I will say that I was honored to meet Ms. McAfee a while ago. She has a wonderful heritage here in San Angelo of working with the arts. A really neat lady, and she also has I can tell, a true love for the auditorium and wants to see that building brought back to its grandeur. So I'll note that in the latter, I talk about the financials of the project. We currently have a project budget of $4.6 million. Bringing this contribution in, part of that was pledged in the original, would bring our project budget up to $7.1 million, which will do a lot in helping us move this project even further along with our interior things that we want to do, plus back a house stage. So I think I can speak for SAPAC and the San Angelo Area Foundation, who have done a lot of work on this, that we recommend approval of the acceptance of the naming rights, and we thank the family for their generosity.
Thank you, Rick. And I'll open it up to the floor to the family if they would like to come forward and make a statement, or I'll give you the opportunity if you would like. This is a very generous gift. If no one cares to, then we shall just carry on then. Thank you very much.
I'd like to meet them.
Yes, absolutely. I will say, Ms. McAfee she was here earlier. She had to leave for another engagement. There are some other representatives of the family here if they want to stand up, and we'll acknowledge them.
Well, what I hear in the community is let's get this auditorium fixed and open. So I guess my word would be giddy up. Let's get this thing done. Do I have a council comment? If not, I'm going to entertain a motion.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Do we have a motion? I do have a second. Did you want to make a comment, Elizabeth?
I just have I mean, this is obviously extremely generous, and we're very thankful because the community has really suffered without having that auditorium in use. My question is are these the only funds now needed? Is that what you were saying?
Well,
are we ready to get going?
We're ready to get going before. This just takes us to the next level. As you know, sort of a history here, priorly you approved SAPAC to negotiate a contract with Killis, our architect, Killis Allman. So that is signed and in the works. In fact, Killis is coming. When is that, Matt? Is that next week? 2 weeks. Killis will be here. Secondly, you authorized us to move forward with the request for proposals for construction managers. That process is underway, and David Knapp, our internal architect, is working that process. So yes, it's already moving forward. And we haven't, we still think there may be some additional opportunities for additional funds with this project. So as we move forward, we'll keep looking for those, because as we can add those dollars, it just takes that project to the next level.
But you think this is enough to get, again,
Oh,
get
certainly.
started? Okay.
Yes, we're moving forward at this point.
Faster is better on this one with construction and the price of materials going up. I can testify that faster is better.
Yeah, we agree, and of course, we'll have to work through as you know, with the putting the construction manager in place. That process is under works now. The architect is in place, so he has already started. The great part about this is he's already done some of that base work in there. Now, with this, we're looking at some more major things that we would not have been able to afford under the initial base projects, such as the raking or the balcony, those kind of things. So there's going to be some extensive drawings and work that Killis Allman's going to need to do from an architectural standpoint.
I think it's outstanding, Rick. I'm excited about it. I just want to put a little bug in staff's ear. The best way to get rid of a long-term sitting council member is wrap these projects up. I mean, I've been working with you on this for so long, and I'm looking at it as, hallelujah, it's finally here. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Make it a priority. Right at the top of the list. Oh, I'm the one you're talking about getting rid of?
No.
Oh.
I thought you were talking about me.
Make it a priority. I do have a motion. I do have a second.
Could it be possible we're talking about two people?
It's very possible.
Could be.
That's kind of the
Could
way I
be.
took it. You're talking about the oldest rats in the barn here.
We like to
We
see
do have a
into the
motion
tunnel.
and a second. Do I have public comment on this before we vote? If not, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor of accepting this very generous gift so that we can get this auditorium as a very top priority and get this thing completed, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay.
Now, Rick, we just need a windmill.
Put a 6-0
I'm
on it.
happy.
Thank you very much. We very much appreciate you. Let's move on now to item number 23, which is the first public hearing and consideration of introducing an ordinance levying property taxes for the city of San Angelo for the 2014 tax year. An ordinance fixing and levying ad valorem taxes for the current tax year for use and support of the municipal government of the city of San Angelo, Texas for the 2014-2015 budget year, providing for the assessment and collection thereof, providing when the tax shall become due, providing when the tax shall become delinquent, providing for exemptions, providing for severability, providing for publication on the city-operated website, and providing for an effective date. Tina Vanell, Morgan Chegwedden, you do have the floor, ma'am.
Good morning. Before you, I have the tax levy for consideration. There is a lot of information to disclose in the property tax, and so if y'all will indulge me just to clear the air with the folks watching at home and the folks watching here in the audience, we do have a very brief video to speak to some of the major issues, the questions that I believe y'all get a lot, and the questions that we certainly get quite often that our Public Information Office has been very talented and generous to speak to and can get that queued up for us.
Much has been made of the fact that the City of San Angelo's property tax rate is higher than that of many other municipalities. At 77.6 cents per $100 of value, San Angelo's property tax rate is the lowest it's been in 23 years. Even so, it's true that's more than the rates in Abilene, Midland, Odessa, and Wichita Falls. The reasons for that are fourfold. 1. The average value of a homestead in San Angelo is lower than in other cities. Thus, a higher rate is needed to generate a comparable amount of tax revenue. In San Angelo, the average home is valued at $110,301. That compares to nearly $112,000 in Wichita Falls, more than $140,000 in Odessa, and an impressive $208,000 in Midland. 2. The City of San Angelo offers a 20% tax exemption on a homestead. That means a primary residence is taxed at only 80% of its value. Abilene exempts 15% of a homestead's value, while Wichita Falls offers a straight $18,000 exemption. On an average valued home, San Angelo's exemption would be $4,000 more than Wichita Falls's would be. 3. San Angelo lacks a significant commercial and industrial tax base. That shifts more of the burden of funding local government to homeowners. The City of San Angelo's total taxable value is $4.2 billion. That is dwarfed by Midland's $10.2 billion, Abilene's $8.7 billion, Odessa's $6.1 billion, and Wichita Falls's $4.6 billion. Although Midland's tax rate is nearly 36 cents lower than San Angelo's, Midland generates $10 million more in property tax revenue. So again, with a lower tax base, San Angelo requires a higher rate to generate a comparable amount of tax revenue. Lastly, San Angelo collects less sales tax than its peers. That means the city must rely more heavily on property taxes to fund its operations. In the coming year, the City of San Angelo has budgeted $26.7 million in total sales tax collections for the General Fund and the Development Corporation. That represents an increase of about 12%. But that's well below the $30.6 million that Abilene is projecting, the $30.8 million Wichita Falls is budgeting, and the $32.5 million Odessa expects to collect in 2015. Each of those factors contributes to a property tax rate that is higher than that of comparable cities. Lost in the discussion of San Angelo's tax rate is what's most important to taxpayers. That is, how much does the homeowner pay in property taxes? San Angelo homeowners, on average, pay less property taxes, or a comparable amount, than do taxpayers in our benchmark cities. In 2015, the average San Angelo homeowner will pay $685 in city property taxes. That's less than the $734 tax bill in Wichita Falls and Midland's average levy of $872. Odessans will pay $534. But again, Odessa will collect nearly $6 million more in sales tax than San Angelo will. A thriving local economy and real estate market have afforded the City of San Angelo the good fortune to finally address some critical needs. That's especially true of water, streets, and adequately paying firefighters, police officers, and other public servants. The city's leadership remains steadfastly vigilant in ensuring that maximum value is squeezed from every tax dollar, never losing sight of the fact that those dollars belong to you.
It's a very good piece. Is this running on the TV now?
It will now after today's presentation.
Very good.
So before you, to kind of bring some details to it, that's why we lent on the video, because today we're doing the first public hearing and introduction of the ordinance levying the taxes for the 2014 tax year. As discussed during budget preparation, the rate is proposed to stay the same at 77.6 cents, and that's the same as last year, and we recommend approval of the ordinance as presented. So no change in the exemptions, no change in the due dates or anything like that.
Sounds good to me. Who wants to get this started?
Motion to approve.
That's what I wanted
Second.
to hear. That's what I wanted to hear. Tax rate will remain the same this year. We are not going up. And we have gone down a dime in the last 10 years, which is what we wanted to do. I do have a motion. I do have a second that we approve the 77.6 per $100 valuation tax rate for the 2014-2015 year. Do I have public comment on this? Do I have further council comment? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.
Presentation and update, number 24, on boards and commission members' appointment process and attendance policy. Ms. Ramirez?
Yes, Mayor. This item was requested by both Councilmember Farmer and Fleming, and I just provided some background on how the appointments are made. I work very closely with the individual board liaisons to make these appointments. Once I receive the information from the board liaison, whether a member either wants to be reappointed or has a new member that they'd like to appoint, I pass that information to the council member. Once I receive the information from the council member whether to nominate that individual, that item is placed on the agenda, and the council as a whole votes to approve that application. As far as the attendance policy, each board, and I have that as a background item on the this information. Anyway, excuse me. The majority of the boards have established attendance policies by ordinance or by bylaws. The attendance reports are submitted monthly and made available upon request. The board liaison, with the occasional assistance by myself, the city clerk, addresses attendance issues. Follow-up is made with the respective city council members. In other words, if we have a member who's not able to make it to the meetings, the board liaison will meet with them individually, possibly offer the individual to resign so we can appoint somebody else to fill that slot. In January 96, well actually since 96, we have worked on a lot of different changes for the boards and commissions. Council has approved numerous changes, consolidations, and what we have now, which I attached as well, is what we, the existing boards and commissions. And the only thing that we have not finalized is that we approved a a joint meeting, to have a joint meeting with various boards and commissions throughout the year. That is really one of the main things that has not been done since, I think, 2009 when we approved this. One of the things that I did have for the board attendance, former mayor had proposed a nomination committee, which was not approved. Right now, the nominations are made by either the individual council member or as individuals apply, we forward that information to the council member. Any questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Start with you, Elizabeth.
Remind me where it is in that each council member can appoint someone. Why is that done individually? Because I was told when I started working that that was more of a evolved policy than it was anything written.
In doing my research, I have found a proposal that was done when city manager then Tom Adams, but that policy was never approved. It was a proposal where that we would have a nominating committee. The applications would be gathered and then forwarded to the individual council member. But the way it was never formally approved, we kind of kept a hybrid of that policy. So if a council member would like to nominate somebody, then we just accept the application and then forward it to council as a whole.
But there's nothing that is in writing that says each council person has the right to appoint?
Yes, ma'am. In the ordinance, it'll say, we have a member of 7 members and the council members will appoint. It doesn't have to specifically come from that individual single-member district.
Right.
It comes from the nomination process.
Okay, but that is true. Right now, it does say that you have the right to appoint someone from your district. Okay.
Well, not district, just...
You have the right to appoint someone. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think I had a lot of calls about this on the animal shelter board. I think there was a lot of concern over that one, but Rodney or whoever else wanted to, I'll let y'all talk about this first since y'all brought it up.
May I comment on that one? Whenever I receive applications to serve on these different boards, the membership criteria says preferred. We don't always get individuals that meet that criteria. We tried real hard to recruit individuals with that background experience, but sometimes if a council member comes to me saying, no, I want this person appointed, then I submit it to the council as a whole, and that's where it's approved.
The only other thing I would add is that I discussed this the other week at my neighborhood meeting, and there was a huge, support for having some of these boards and commissions meet in the evenings, because obviously work or something is getting in the way of someone meeting their commitment. They probably all want to serve because they've agreed, but for whatever reason, something's getting in the way of it.
And that's something that the boards could take up, as we have as a council. We have had a couple of evening meetings. One was very well attended, and the last one, no one attended. So,
Right.
But that's something they could take up. And I do like being able to pick my board members. So I would like to retain that. Don, do you have anything to say, sir?
No.
How about you, Charlotte?
Well, yes, I do. And as a council person, it is virtually impossible to attend all of the meetings that go on in the city, all the different boards and stuff. And I thank Channel 17 for helping me keep up with and watch. But the person that I appoint is someone that I can relate to, talk to, who will convey, and we kind of see the same or oppose. That's certainly their right, but can talk to them. And I do like the idea of being able to appoint my own person. What I have trouble with is recently there's a situation where we have a board that has alternate members, and my appointee served on the board, and from what I understand was going to resign that position, and the rest of that board said, oh, no, don't do that. We will just put an alternate in your place and keep you for maybe, for whenever you need. Well, that alternate was not someone that I knew or that was appointed by me to serve as an alternate, and that's aggravating to me, real aggravating, because I have no say or no connection with that person, and I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong.
May I speak on that one as well?
Sure.
This particular board that you're speaking of is the ZBA. We have 5 appointees and 2 alternates. So technically, we have appointees by all council members, and 2 of them will always be an alternate, and we rotate that alternate position. So that was unfortunate that, that person will no longer maintain that, what I guess for lack of a better word, a full-time position. They stepped down, and then somebody in that alternate position stepped up. So in that particular board, we will always have alternates because 5 members are only required for that particular board.
I understand that, but you understand where I'm coming from, that that particular board is an important board, and I lean on it and rely on it, and hopefully they'll get things solved that don't come to council and take up time, and to not even be aware that this person stepped down and was going to resign. That was kept within that board, their own little democracy.
Right, and I wasn't aware of that either.
That's not right.
Maybe a solution could be, and I'm not sure, I'd have to check with Patrick on this one, possibly make all the members as full-time appointees as opposed to just the 5. Yeah. Consider that one as well.
Might also add, though, that you brought this to attention at the last meeting, and we corrected it. We made it like you wanted. So, to me, that tells us that the system is working. And if we want something specific as a council member with the board member, we need to make that specific thing known, which you did, and which we approved, so we reseated him. So, you're a board member.
I just want to point out, to the public that these boards, they're at council's discretion. And if we get a new council member and they want their person and they have the right, to replace whomever, and that's the way it is. That's the political process with the boards.
Marty, do you have anything on this?
I think Ms. Grindstaff was fixing to say something.
Oh, were you fixing to say something else?
No, the left wing should always have its chance. But I think the problem is, and what I'm hearing is, each council member can have their people, but if it inconveniences mine because you can't make a quorum, then I have a say in that. That's a problem for me, and it's a problem for the citizens. So I think the whole reason this item is before us was to figure out some way to take care of those problems. I mean, I can pick out one board on here and see they have excused absences for the last 6 months. That helps no one.
Not acceptable.
Is that the planning board?
No.
Well, this all came about from me on the planning board because there's one member on there, and it's not my member, that has missed 4 of the last 7 meetings. And I don't care what his excuse was, he shouldn't be on the board anymore. He should be gone. And that's why I brought it forward. I really want him off the board. And I like what you're saying. This does affect me because now we're having all these votes that are tied votes. When he isn't there, he could have broken that tie. We could have gone one way or the other on a bunch of really big issues recently. And
well, and that's the problem. We have a lot of really big issues, and we need that board to function.
That's a very, very important board, and I want whoever's in charge of that board, can't they just ask him to step down? Have they asked him to step down?
Not that I'm aware of. Again, unless the board liaison lets me know, and I've worked with several liaisons on these individuals, possibly having them resign and then appoint somebody else. But if I'm not made aware of it, I depend on those liaisons too.
Can we talk to them? Because I would like for them to ask that person to step down.
Yes, sir.
I don't think they have enough excuses for that. And I don't know if they're just not wanting to handle the load right now because the load is very heavy.
Right.
But we do have members, and there are other people out there that want to be on that board that I know are very, very good people.
And may I define, when it comes to unexcused absences, I was looking at the various ordinances, and an unexcused absence is defined as notifying the liaison or the chairperson prior to the meeting. We had talked about if there's a conflict in scheduling or something, but as long as they notify the liaison or the chairperson, then that is considered as an excused absence.
So they can just say anything? I can just say I'm not coming?
It's just how the ordinance is written.
I think that needs to change.
We have to change.
That could be redefined.
Okay.
I just think we need to correct that.
Yeah, that needs to be redefined.
Yeah, if we could just say, if they meet once a month, the planning meets once a month. They meet once a month. I mean, more than 2 absences is in a year's time, I think is that's my opinion. I think that's not.
Are we saying strictly absences, whether it's
I'm saying
excused or not
strictly.
excused?
Yeah,
Unless-
there's got to be some qualification there, but
Death in the family,
Yeah.
maybe, or something. But
Let me look to see what other cities.
see what you can do with that to redefine that, because that does need to be changed. And I agree with you on that planning commission, because they just run them to us.
yes, they just keep pushing it forward, and they keep having tied votes. Well, if everybody's there,
And it's a lose-lose situation when we get them. Is there any more direction for Alicia on this? Does that pretty well explain it? You have something to work on, ma'am?
I think it is. It's just the issue of what we consider excused or unexcused, and I don't. Y'all can.
Yeah, and
I think we can work that
something.
out.
Put some language together so that we can discuss it, please, ma'am.
But we want it to be pretty tough.
Tight.
I think harder to be excused rather than right now. That's very vague. Sounds
And-
like if I call 30 minutes before the meeting, I'm going to get an excused absent.
Okay, and one of the other things that I know I've been working with Ms. Bowling on, and we were possibly trying to gather something called a good government handbook, and that would encompass like all the boards where we would have a consistent policy across the board
Yeah.
between everyone, and then, but that would require ordinance changes, so there's no conflicts with this good government handbook.
That sounds perfect.
Bring it forward.
Yes, and I look forward to that. I was going to say a very strict policy, which is in the charter, which applies to city council absences, is under Section 10. Of course, it doesn't necessarily fit with a volunteer board, but it would be interesting to determine if we do adhere to the charter requirement, which says that that a council member shall forfeit $10 of his salary if absent from any regular meeting of council unless such absence from the meeting is unavoidably necessitated in the services of such officer on business of the city, away from the city, at the time the meeting is held. So indeed, you have to be on city business to be, that the excused absence is that your absence because of city business.
I have an idea that when that ordinance was written in 1915 at $40 a month, and when we fast forward to 2014, still at the $40 a month, I see that loses a little bit of its intent.
Well, perhaps that might be one of the provisions we'd
Yeah.
consider in our charter review.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly.
I agree. Attorney, do you have a comment, sir?
Yes, my name is Jim Turner, and dealing with boards and commissions is an issue that's been in front of the council pretty much since I've been following city council. I know that a lot of the membership requirements and changing the number of members to 7 so that each city council member would have a more direct control over that member happened about 6 or 7 years ago. And I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, we also looked at a board review process that kind of sort of got started but never really got completed, including putting in almost a sunset type of review on the boards, because we do have a lot of boards here. We have more boards than a lot of cities our size do. That doesn't mean they're not needed, but I think that periodically a lot of these boards, especially some of these that are purely advisory boards, we really need to look at, and they need to justify their existence by what they're actually contributing to the city itself. Right. Some boards, like Zoning Board of Adjustments, the Planning Commission, Animal Shelter Advisory Committee, those are actually required by state statute and state law. And even some of the requirements of who can be on them, especially for the Animal Shelter Committee. We really don't have a lot of choice there, but they still need to be adjusted, looked at, and they need to justify what they're doing, and we need to make sure that even though they got a core function, we're actually using them to the best benefit of the city for issues around that. One of the other proposals that was put up that probably I think is overdue is there's a lot of these boards that have never been face-to-face with the public and the city council, and we tried to get started a rotating meeting, joint sessions with every board and the city council, to where at least the public could see that the city council knew who was on the board. A lot of you know who your member is, but you may not know who anybody else on the board is, and that can be critical. And part of that face-to-face meeting should be a checklist. Here's what you're doing great, here's why we like you, and here's what you need to be doing better, and maybe even, why do we even have this board at all? That needs to happen. The number of boards we have right now is difficult for anybody to manage. And if they're just there so somebody has a place that they can check off on their resume, I was on this board, that's probably not doing anybody any good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And we did, 4 years ago, we set it up where we would meet a board every council meeting, that they would come forward, we would meet them, we would visit with them, the public could meet them, and I don't think we ever met a one. So I would like to see that. I'd like to see that done, boss.
In the past, the council has invited a board, tried to rotate out to have lunch during executive session and just general
that would work.
conversation.
I'd like to see them in public forum. I'd like to see them in part of the public meeting and be an agenda item. Let's meet these boards. Let's introduce them one at a time. Let's visit with them. Let's let the public see them. We were going to do this, and we never did a thing. I would like to reiterate that 4-year-old decision, and let's start it.
Okay, with that direction, when would you like to start? We
Next
can
meeting's
start-
fine with
we can
me.
start October 1, that way we alternate a board
That
per
would work with
month.
me. I think we need to get them started.
Okay.
Because Turner made a good point. We need to meet these people.
I have a question. Are all of the boards required to live within the city limits of San Angelo, or all of
The
them?
majority are.
The majority?
Yeah, tiers.
Which
I
ones
thi-
aren't?
I think it's tiers. You can be within the county-owned property, but I just need to make sure on that. But the majority, yes, have to be residents of the city.
Okay.
Everybody through with this one?
Very good.
Everybody satisfied? Number 25 is discussion and possible action related to establishing a charter review committee. Charlotte asked for this, and Charlotte also asked that it be postponed.
Is
So
there anyone here that came to speak on this item?
I imagine Turner had
I
something
think
to say.
Mr. Turner, and of course, we have spoke, but I'm just not quite ready to talk to the council. I just need a little more time.
Let's put it on, if council accepts this, let's put it on next meeting's agenda. That'll give you enough time?
Yes.
Okay. Let's put it on the next agenda, and you can talk next time, Turner.
Thank you.
All right, that does conclude as far as we can go until we get through with executive. It is 11:35. I am taking us into executive. The executive session of the Provision of Government Code Title 5, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, Exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following section. Section 551072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, including possible police department location and property owned by the city. An hour, you think? Hour and a half? You think an hour? Okay. Well, if it's 12:35, let's say we'll be back by 11:35. Let's say we'll be back by 11:45. That'll give us a little time. Need to go forward an hour. Add an hour to, so it's 11:35, and if we add an hour, that would be 12. Yeah, that's good. I need a little help from my Lakeview boy here. Okay, we'll be back at approximately 12:45. 1:09, and I call this meeting back to order. Next thing on the agenda is item number 26, which is consideration of and possible action on matters discussed in executive closed session if needed, and there was absolutely nothing that we discussed that needs any action on. So I know of nothing we need to go further on that. Number 27 is announcements and consideration of future agenda items. I'll start with you, Rodney, if you have anything you want to put on the next agenda.
Not at this time.
Marty?
I just would, I think I've let staff know, but I'm not going to be here the first October meeting. So I wanted to make sure that whoever I had to pay my $10 to, I guess I have to pay $10. I don't know.
We'll need to discuss that because we may have maybe 3 council members missing on that date. So we may want to consider maybe moving that meeting. So we'll discuss that a little bit, I guess.
Okay.
We'll get to that point.
Charlotte, you have anything you wanted to put on the agenda?
Oh, no, I've got plenty I'm working on. Need to slow down.
Don, did you have anything?
I discussed with Rick a little bit about the agenda item that I would ask for on our lots that have liens against them and those sort of things. So at our next meeting, I think that that'll be on there for discussion.
Ms. Elizabeth, you have anything, ma'am?
No, sir.
Well, I do have one, and I asked for it to be put on this meeting, and it was not, about the $3.6 million that I would like to apply to the water deficits. I asked for that last time to be on this meeting. It was not. I would like that to be on next meeting for discussion.
Mayor, that we did discuss that at our staff meeting as well. We need to put together some items to present to you, but we definitely will have it at the next city council
Okay,
meeting.
that's
Yeah.
good. Well, I
Yes.
want it on there.
Mary, we wanted to have a meeting with you before that.
Correct.
Before
Okay.
it came to public session so that you knew what some of your alternatives were.
Very well. Okay. Well, let's get it on next meeting, and we'll meet between then to work out the details.
Will do.
Charlotte?
I just want to be correct that in September, we're not having a council meeting on the second Tuesday. It's on the third Tuesday, on the 16th. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
Council meetings in September, we have it the first.
This is September.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. I was back to his October.
Yes, it's October, the first meeting in October.
We're having one the first Tuesday in September.
Okay.
The 7th.
Okay. What I mentioned a while ago, we may have 3 council members out on the first meeting in October. So that's something we need to consider, Alicia, as far as either rescheduling that meeting or.
Right, we could either reschedule it, but I need to confirm first if we're going to have any second hearings related to planning items. I always like to check with them on the second hearings. It is Tuesday the 7th. Our meetings in October will be the 7th and the 21st. So if we want to either postpone it a day or before or after that, within that same week, you could possibly decide that.
I think maybe just one meeting, maybe the one on the
21st? Let me confirm with planning first to make sure that we don't have any second hearings.
Because we'll have our budget done by then, so, I don't know, that's just an idea. Maybe just one meeting in October, because I don't think Don's going to be here either, and I don't know that I'll be here,
Okay.
so.
So, and then we won't have a quorum, so that.
Fleming's not going to be here either. Possibly.
Fleming may not be here either.
Okay. Let me confirm with everybody. I'll send an
Okay.
updated email regarding those hearings.
Very good.
Do we have anything else to discuss? And I'm calling.
Move to adjourn.
That's what I
Second.
wanted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
1:13, and this meeting is over.
Yeah.